We're going to have a chance for you to ask questions, and I hope that some of you have been emailing them. And I'm going to turn to Matthew Crable, the mouth from the dark, who will speak forth what questions might be coming from you.
Thank you to those. Thank you to those of you who've sent in questions. For the Muslims on the panel, what do you expect from a Christian who really wants to show his or her love for Muslims?
Really nothing else. I think, first of all, this is incredible. I mean, the word love itself, love is a very deep, deep emotion. And if somebody shows love to me, I expect myself to reciprocate that, number one. Number two, I really would like that individual or that institution to spread that love, because we really need that. To be the example, to not be fearful and just keep it within, but really let that know in a public sense, because that's what we really need. We need to inspire the rest of the country, honestly.
Anyone else want to respond?
Just really quickly, one of the things, oftentimes you hear the golden rule, that something is an idea that's shared by the various faith communities. The particular verbiage that's used as a wisdom teaching of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, may God's peace be upon him, is the following. He says, he goes into this the notion of the golden rule, but using the word love. He says, as a definition of a believer, he says, none of you is a true believer unless you love for your fellow human being what you love for yourself. And it's not just doing unto others, but really loving for them what you love for yourself. So the idea of being able to get to that point where you can love for others requires that you do the hard work of misunderstanding and the education and of making the friendships and the principles of justice and mercy that Professor Evelyne spoke about so eloquently, and Dr. Woodberry as well in his travels to and through the Muslim world. It's to get to the point where someone can say, I want to love, express my love to a Muslim, that's the end of a journey. And if the person starts out there, they've already clearly gone through some tremendous growth in their own heart, and that's an example for all of humanity to follow.
Yeah, great, thank you. Do you want to?
Just really quickly. As a Muslim woman who wears a hijab, you always have to kind of look at people's gaze at you, right? You do see people who are genuinely afraid of you, and it's not funny. So if you're in an elevator, for example, and people will actually exit the elevator. It's like, I don't want to ride the elevator with you. I don't want to take that risk. So you notice some of these instances, and you notice some of these looks of suspicious and of fear. I really love when I see, and it's specifically people of faith, specifically Christians, for example, people who believe in God and they believe in that love, who randomly also tell you, how much they actually feel for you, or how much. There's a lot more incidents like that. There's a lot more people coming up to us, complete strangers, standing in a line, for example, saying, you know what, I want to apologize for all the stuff that you have to go through. My response is always like, you don't need to apologize for somebody else's, but it's always sharing that love, and I always feel like it comes out of people's belief in God and their belief and their faith, that they're actually able to distinguish that, able to see that you're a fellow human being and you haven't done anything wrong, particularly. So I would say honestly, for every incidence of fear or even of terrified looks or of comments of, there's always a lot more sharing of love, of support, of people willing, like what Faisal was saying, to stand up actually and share that publicly and say, you know what, I will speak up if I see anybody doing something wrong, or somebody being discriminatory or anything like that. So that's really amazing.
Can I give a quick example of that?
Yeah.
There's a young gal. She's a chaplain in Midwest Islam, a Muslim chaplain, and this was last year. She was flying. Well, we have a lot of flight stories. Well, you put a whole bunch of different kind of people in the airplane, or universities. You have very interesting dynamics that develop. So she was flying, and then there was some guy behind her who just constantly abused her. She wears a hijab and made racist comments throughout her trip. And she came out literally crying, and then she posted that on Facebook, went viral. And what she said hurt her most is that nobody around her, nobody stood up or spoke for her or defended her. So, I mean, true love is really, one's gonna have to put themselves in harm's way. I mean, it's not an easy exercise, if you will. You know?
I don't know the source of the quote, but someone once said that love expressed in public is justice and mercy.
So, yeah. Thank you very much. Let's have another question.
Yeah, we have another question. What are some practical ways that Muslim and Christian communities can work together to empower and encourage women?
Okay, so a question centered specifically on women. I assume this is for anyone on the panel. Though maybe we lean this way for starters.
I just wanted to start with a general comment, maybe. It's actually, and that's from more what I've read about people talking about gender in the Muslim world. And I would say, don't assume you know, and talk to Muslim women. Don't assume you know, because actually you may think, there's an anthropologist whose name is Leila Abu Luhad, and she wrote a book entitled Do Muslim Women Need Saving? To be saved. In sense of there are a lot of people who go fast to rescue, but what does it mean? And there is that, you know, so I think we have, for me, my recommendation for my community is we should first listen. And listen to a variety of voices, but listen to what are the real needs of Muslim women. That's what I would say would be a good exercise, but you are more qualified for that.
Saving by Jesus or saving from the treatment of men?
Yeah, because she saved from
Any and all things.
any and all things. Yeah. That's the title of the book.
I would just say that, you know, Michal's own project, and I've attended that, I mean, that's an example of really empowering each other, and I think you should perhaps mention your experience in that.
Yeah, one of the things that in the step process that we have is ultimately where we want to get going is to have people figure out what does God put you on earth for. And so, for example, I'm working a lot with college students, and right now there's a Muslim college student that I work with, and she is, I helped her, was part of her discovery process of finding out that she wanted to be a midwife. And she loves delivery and maternal health and all of that kind of stuff. And then I work with a Christian college student who is studying to be a nurse and wants to specialize in that area. And so I connected the two. And one of them is moving to Kosovo, and I connected them there with some Muslims and Christians that are working on improving maternal health for people there. And so now they're potentially thinking of, hey, let's get some Muslim and Christian medical students to go over and help some of these clinics there that are really struggling, or some training, things like that. Because we do a lot of these things separately. So Muslims go all over the world helping in relief and development, and Christians have their own organizations doing that. It makes so much more sense for us to combine efforts. And so I think that women's issues is one of that, but all many other issues as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Did you want to share anything on that theme?
I'll say one. I think there's two aspects that I think are important to consider on the issue of empowerment of women. One is the general education of women and the role of women and the perception here in the West. Pew did a study, and it showed that in that study, Muslim women were the most educated class of demographically speaking within the United States, second only to Jewish women. So Jewish women were the most educated, second were Muslim women in the United States, as a proportion of the demographic of Muslims in the United States. So it's true that in certain Muslim cultures, certain Muslim contexts, women are mistreated by Muslim men. It's not Islam that is mistreating them. It has to do with the cultural context. So within the general society in the West, women have opportunities here in free Western societies and in some Muslim societies. Within the religious context, however, sometimes women are not given equal opportunity to have a space, spiritual space. And there have been a number of blogs that have started up, such as Side Entrance blog, in which there are incidents recorded of mosques that have inadequate spaces for women to pray or to participate in community, et cetera. And so one of the things that we're trying to do at the Islamic Seminary at Bayan is to give opportunity to empower women through education and through credentialing. Michal's partner, Sundus, before joining Bayan as a student in Islamic chaplaincy, she actually was one of the first women that I know of in the country to serve as president of the mosque, of the board of the mosque. So it's happening, but it's less frequent, not nearly as frequent as it needs to be. And when she was considering graduate school to what kind of degree she would need in order to be most successful, we had a long conversation about which degree she should pursue. Should it be interfaith chaplaincy or Islamic chaplaincy? And I persuaded her to pursue Islamic chaplaincy because part of what that degree will help you gain is credibility within the Muslim community, being able to speak more authoritatively to Muslims about Islam, but also in representing Islam to the non-Muslim community and the Christian community. So I think education within religious context for the empowerment of women is important here in the West, even though women generally have a very high level of education and access.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think we just have time for one more question.
Okay.
And it's posed this way. As a devout Christ follower, I believe in the power of prayer to build bridges of love between Christians and Muslims. How can Christians in the room personally pray for you and Muslims in general or specifically?
So this is directed out to a Muslim audience member? Sure. All right. So, because Professor Woodberry would be able to give the theologically appropriate response to that from within an evangelical context, or Professor Evelyne. But I would just say, what would we like you to pray for us for? I think it would be most helpful for us as a community if you prayed for our community to be better understood, for our community to be to feel less marginalized, less vulnerable, less insecure. For us who are older, it's not a problem. And growing up with a name like Jihad, you learn to have thick skin. But but for younger kids, it's a much more difficult time. And you see in the classrooms that you visit, it's very challenging for young people in their formation of their identity and their religious identity, in particular as Muslims, for that to be done in a way that allows them as Muslims to grow a loving heart. Because when you feel, whether it's isolated or marginalized, it's hard to not have a young kid respond with an equal and opposite reactionary animosity. And so I don't know if that's a good enough answer, but to pray for our community to feel embraced and to feel the love of the faith communities that surround us and by society in general here in the West, and then at the global, world peace. So.
I would just say that, whenever some of my Christian colleagues or other colleagues, when they say that may God be with you, it feels good, and it really touches me. And I think, prayers are welcome. I'm a physician. I believe that prayers have healing power. We have scientific, clinical proof of some of that. But prayers of our kids' well-being, safety of people around us, they're welcome and should be really exchanged more frequently than they really are. I just have, more recently I was involved in this campaign to raise funds for San Bernardino shooting victims. My nonprofit has projects in that area. We have a program that went viral, was very successful, raised over $200,000. And when that campaign was on, And I was really busy. I mean, I was on call at the hospitals. I had a lot of stroke emergencies coming in. I was just running between hospital rooms to hospital rooms, trying to manage and coordinate the campaign on my device, and was really stressed out. And one of the things I was really having a hard time figuring out is what the county is going to do. I was having a very difficult time getting hold of county officials. So I called this gentleman who I had gotten to know. He's an evangelical pastor in the community, and he said, I said, I need your help. It turned out that he was a pastor to a bunch of public officials in the area, so it became really easy. He got me connected to them. But the last thing he said to me, he said, I'm here to do God's work. I believe in you. I believe in what you're doing, and I'm going to do everything to help you, and my prayers are with you. And till this day, I email him and I ask him, can you please keep me in your prayers? Which is something we say amongst Muslims. I never really use that expression with other, in an ecumenical sense. But now I make a point to do that because I feel like asking him to do that. And that makes me feel very comfortable.
Thank you very much.
Jesus is very highly thought of in Islam and is mentioned frequently throughout the Quran. And so he is a role model for Muslims and for Christians. I certainly, if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think we all should be praying that we will become more Christ-like. And if we do become more Christ-like, we will be attractive throughout both communities because of the very high position Christ has in the Quran and in Islam.
Thank you. Any concluding comments here? It was a beautiful way of ending. Yeah. You've all given us a wonderful gift tonight, both by just your own spirits and your words and your wisdom. I'm struck by a couple things just as we close. One is how important it is that we grow in these friendships and how easy it is to let them pass because of the challenges. The bar may seem too high, the disorientation that's there. And yet, clearly, in the future of the world, in the future of this very important conversation and relationship between Muslims and Christians, it's just extremely important that we do give ourselves to this. I was stunned and then not surprised, I suppose, by the study that came out about a little more than a year ago, that talked on racial terms, that very few Americans have close friends of people of another race. If that's true of another race, it's also true, I would venture to say, of deep friendships across religious divisions as well. So I think that I and we at Fuller and we, all of us together here tonight, have really been given a wonderful gift. And the gift will be the challenge of how we go out from this place and actually cultivate meaningful friendships and remember to pray for one another across our similarities and our differences. Please join me in thanking our panel and speakers.